Hello. In this session, we'll discuss hydrogen atomic spectra. We'll start to understand the origin of hydrogen atomic spectra. We'll first understand the Bohr's atomic theory, and we'll understand the hydrogen atomic spectra in terms of Rydberg formula in a more general way. The first hydrogen atomic spectra was observed by Balmer in 1885. He tried to plot the graph of his observation. What he did, he plotted the frequency of hydrogen emission or hydrogen atomic emission with respect to 1 by n square. N was for his kind of experiment, n was 3, 4, 5 and other higher numbers. So when he did that, he got a linear plot. Now to explain those explain his data, he obtained an expression. He got an expression, and that expression looks like nu bar. Nu bar is the expression of frequency in terms of energy. Nu bar is equal to 109,677 or 680, often it is also written as 1 over 2 square minus 1 over n square centimeter inverse. N is 345. That is important for only for Balmer kind of experiment. Now, to understand what he couldn't explain what was the origin of those spectra, and for Balmer series or Balmer line of spectra, those lines were appearing only in visible region of spectra, but he couldn't explain what was the reason for that, what was the physical significance of those Balmer lines. To understand that, we need to go through the Bohr's theory, which came at a later stage. Bohr's theory says that when electron revolves around the nucleus, electrons get stabilized due to two effects. One is Coulombic force of attraction between proton and electron, and the second effect is the centrifugal force that acts on the electron. So both these effects, the Coulombic force of attraction and centrifugal force, counterbalance each other, and that causes the electron to revolve around the nucleus. So Coulombic force of attraction is E square by 4 pi epsilon naught r square. Epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space, which is equal to mv square by r. Mv square by r is nothing but the centrifugal force. Bohr, in order to explain his theory in a proper way, Bohr made two non-classical assumptions. The first assumption was Bohr stated that electrons revolves around a stationary electronic orbit. A stationary electronic orbit means as long as electron is present in those orbit, it will neither absorb energy nor it will emit energy. It will continue to have a certain constant amount of energy while revolving around a particular orbit or particular energy state. The second non-classical assumption was he stated that the de Broglie waves of orbiting electron must match or must be in phase, means the wave character of electron must be in phase or they must be matched with each other. So when that will happen, the circumference of that orbiting the orbit is 2 pi r, and for those waves to be in phase, that 2 pi r must be equal to n lambda. So lambda comes out to be 2 pi r by n. So n can be 1, 2, 3. These are orbit numbers or energy states. 1, 2, 3 are energy states. The n is equal to 1 is ground energy state, then 2 is excited energy state, first excited energy state, 3 is equal to second excited energy state. So this was lambda is equal to 2 pi r by n was Bohr's assumption. Before that, de Broglie's expression was given as lambda is equal to h by p or h by mv. mv is momentum of the electron. So if we equate both the lambdas, we will get 2 pi r over n is equal to h by mv. If we rearrange, we will get mvr is equal to nh by nh over 2 pi. So this mvr is nothing but the angular momentum of electron about proton, and this expression says that angular momentum of electron about proton is quantized because it involves a parameter n, which is a integer kind of expression, integer n is equal to 1, 2, 3 kind of expression. So this angular momentum is also quantized. Now if we rearrange this expression, we will get velocity of electron in term which is ns over 2 pi mer. Then we further suppose then we'll substitute the velocity of electron expression in the first expression. What was our first expression? It stated that the Coulombic force of attraction is equal to the centrifugal force of attraction. So in that expression we will substitute the velocity of electron. By doing that we will get the radius of electron. Radius of electronic orbit means the distance of that orbit from nucleus in which the electron is revolving. R is radius of the orbit. So if we substitute n is equal to 1, or that is for ground state, there are many constants here. E0, epsilon 0 is the permittivity of free space, which is a constant. H bar square is nothing but h by 2 pi. H is again a Planck's constant. Me is mass of electron, and E is electronic charge. So all are constant, and n is the only variable parameter. So for n is equal to 1, if we put all other constants, we will get the radius of orbit. The first Bohr orbit is 52.92 picometer, and this is called Bohr orbit, and it is often represented by A0. So this is all about the Bohr's radius. Then we will evaluate the energy of electron. To do that, we know we have to add kinetic energy and potential energy. The potential energy of electron revolving around a nucleus is given as minus E square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Why minus? The negative sign appears because there is an attractive interaction between nucleus and the electron. So what is kinetic energy now? Kinetic energy is mv square by 2, or half mv square, and potential energy is minus E square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. So when we add them up, we will get the total energy. So some rearrangement here in terms of mv square. We have got an expression. We have already got an expression for mv square. What is mv square? Mv square will be E square over 4 pi epsilon naught r. So if we substitute that in place of mv square, we will get E square by 4 pi epsilon naught r. Then we will get the final expression is negative E square by 8 pi epsilon naught r. Now here we will again substitute the expression for r. If we substitute the expression for r, we have already obtained an expression for r. If we substitute that, we will get energy in terms of a parameter, that is n. The variable parameter, that is n. The other parameters are constant again here. Me4 over 8 epsilon square h square. They are all constants here. The only variable parameter is n square. So energy varies inversely. Energy has a inverse relation with respect to n square. What is n? N is the energy states, or orbiting or the number of orbits, we can say. So for two different states or two different orbits, what will be the electronic energy at two different orbits? We have to take the difference, simple difference. So if we do that, we will get a constant term then 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. n1 square is the lower orbit and n2 is the higher orbit. So generally in spectroscopy, energy is the unit of energy in this expression is joule, but generally in spectroscopy and the lines or in the spectroscopic transitions are represented as centimeter inverse. So you have to convert that joule into centimeter inverse. To do that, we can we have to divide the energy with Hc. So if we divide the energy with Hc, we'll get the frequency in terms of centimeter inverse, or energy in terms of centimeter inverse. So nu bar is delta E by over Hc, or that is also same as 1 by lambda. Lambda is wavelength of the radiation, and nu bar is frequency of the radiation in terms of centimeter inverse kind of thing. So if we do that, we will get again a constant term over into a constant term and product of 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. Again, n1 is the lower orbit and n2 is the higher orbit. So what we get, the final expression is nu bar in terms of centimeter is equal to RH in terms of centimeter inverse, product of 1 by n1 square over minus 1 by n2 square. So this RH is a constant, and that is equal to Me4 over 8 epsilon square HQC. So which is the modern value of Rydberg constant now comes out to be 109677.581 centimeter inverse. This is just a Rydberg constant. Now when we substitute different values of n1 and n2 into the Rydberg formula, what we'll get? So the nu bar is equal to 1 over lambda 109677. This is the Rydberg constant value, the Rydberg constant value, into 1 over n1 square minus 1 over n2 square. So there are two variables now. One variable is n1 and the other variable is n2. Both the variables denote the orbit of the electron, means where the electron is present into among the many possibilities. So if we do a study on the variable parameters n1 and n2, we get different results. So when n1 can have values 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, and n2 have values, when n1 is 1, n2 can have values 2, 3, 4 like that. Means electron is jumping from orbit 2 to 1, orbit 3 to 1, orbit 4 to 1. And those kind of series are known as Lyman series, and it appears in the region UV. And similarly, the second set of series where n1 is 2, means electron is the initial state of electron is fast excited state, n1 is 2, and the final I'm wrong here. The initial state of electron is n2 is equal to 3, 4, 5, and it jumps back to n1, which is 2, the fast excited state. And if such a transition takes place, then that kind of series is known as Balmer series, and it appears in visible region. Then the subsequent next kind of series is known as Paschen series, then bracket series, then there is Font series. There are many. Up to Font series we know. So if we represent all these things in a pictorial form, in a graphical form, so here this is Lyman series. For Lyman series, the initial state is 2, 3, 4, and final state is 1. Similarly, Balmer series, initial state is 3, 4, 5, and goes like, but the final stage is n is equal to 2. Similarly, for Paschen series, the initial state is 4, 5, 6, and the final state is n is equal to 3. Similarly, bracket series, the initial states are 5, 6, 7 like that, and final state is n is equal to 4, and like that it continues. As I've said also, the Lyman series appears in deep UV region, so it is observed in a UV region of spectrum. Balmer series appears in visible region. What is the visible spectrum in terms of wavelength or in terms of nanometer? The visible series, that VIBGYOR, violet, indigo, blue, green, red, orange, all those, that appears in 360 nanometer to 780 or 760 nanometer. Basically 400 to 800 can also be said as visible region. So in that region, Balmer series appears. Paschen and bracket series appears in infrared region of spectrum. So this was all about Bohr's model, and from those Bohr's model, we with the help of Rydberg function, Rydberg constant, we could Rydberg formula maybe. With the help of Rydberg formula and Bohr's model, we could explain the hydrogen atomic spectra. But there are some of the drawbacks associated with Bohr's model. The first drawback was it failed for many electron atom. Bohr's model was very good explaining the properties of hydrogen atom or single electron species, but when there is multi-electron species, when there is a consideration of multi-electron species, Bohr's model simply failed. It couldn't explain those properties what it could explain for hydrogen atom. Then the second demerit of Bohr's model was, after 14 years of Bohr's proposition, Heisenberg verified that it is not possible to simultaneously know position or electron orbit radius and momentum. Bohr said we can find out radius of electron or radius of orbit in which electron is moving and its momentum. We can find out both simultaneously. We have discussed now also. But after 14 years of Bohr's proposition, Heisenberg said no, we can't do that. So what was the principle behind Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is that Heisenberg said we cannot do that. Why that is justified, we'll see. What is the viewing condition? To view or to see any particle, suppose we are seeing any particle, the viewing condition is the wavelength of light should be smaller than the size of particle. So suppose I am seeing a ball, then the wavelength of light, suppose the ball is red in color, the red light should have smaller size than the ball, then only I will be able to see the ball. If the wavelength that I am using to see the object, in this case a ball, is smaller, sorry, if the wavelength is larger than the ball, then I will not be able to see it. When the wavelength is smaller than the size of the particle or size of the object, then only I will be able to see it. So to see the position of electron, we have to use a wavelength of light. So when the wavelength of light is smaller than the size of electron, then what will happen? Electron is already very small particle. The radius is around 10 to the power minus 15 meter kind of thing. So when we use a wavelength of light which is very small, then its energy increases. So when the energy increases, and then when we project that light to see an electron, what will happen, that that light will have sufficient energy, and those energy will be transferred to that electron in form of momentum. Those light energy will be transferred to that electron in form of momentum, and that electron will not be there. That electron will gain that momentum and skid off from its initial position. So although we can see the electron using that light, but we cannot measure the momentum of the electron, because the electron will gain momentum from the light, because the light will have sufficient amount of momentum, and it will displace electron from its position. So we cannot measure position and momentum simultaneously. So there must be some uncertainty associated, and Heisenberg proposed that uncertainty associated with position and momentum is greater than equal to h bar over 2. H bar is h by 2 pi, so h by 4 pi also I can say. So we'll discuss more about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle in subsequent lectures. So with this we'll stop here. Thank you.